All right, so one thing that's kind of interesting to me, and I've talked about this a little bit in the past, is the trailer hitch on these Jeep Wranglers. So traditionally, the Wranglers have always been capped at 3,500 pounds of maximum towing capacity, right? And so the hitch that comes on the JL Wranglers, if you look in the literature, it's listed as a Class 2 hitch, and Class 2 hitches are capped at 3,500 pounds. So starting in 2024, they increased the towing capacity on these Rubicons to 5,000 pounds. But if you look at the literature, it still shows a Class 2 hitch. So you can go online and you can buy Class 3 hitches, or at least hitches that are listed as Class 3 hitches. But what's interesting to me is if you look at the way this is constructed, it's built. The one that comes with the Jeep here is built just like the hitches that are listed as Class 3 hitches online. So, my favorite website to buy towing equipment is called eTrailer.com. If you go through there, there's several different options for Class 3 hitches, and you'll notice that this is how they're built. You've got this bracket here that it's kind of hard to see on top, but basically the bracket comes all the way around the receiver tube, and you can see how it's welded all the way down and then all the way out here too. You have welds that go all the way around the tube, and then back there in the back there's another bracket, and it's welded all the way across on the back. And then in this particular case, we can't see it from this angle, but up underneath here it's welded up underneath there too. And so basically the receiver tube is encapsulated by these brackets and all of this steel framework, and you've got welds everywhere. And so this is an extremely strong way to build the hitch. And like I said, all of the Class 3 hitches that you can purchase online look exactly like this, the way that they're constructed. So I don't really understand why there's a difference in how these hitches are rated when they're clearly built the same way. Now, there's some hitches you can find online that don't have this bracket here. Basically, the receiver tube is just welded to a top plate, and you've got one weld that goes across the top, and that's about it. And yet they rate those as Class 3 hitches. So there's just a lot of weird stuff that goes on with this kind of thing, and it's really confusing to people who want to actually tow with these vehicles. I wish that Jeep would be a little bit more specific about the actual weight ratings on these things. But visually, just looking at this hitch, I don't see any reason to swap it out for one that's listed as a Class 3 hitch, because it's built exactly the same. I mean, this is a very robust design, and I just don't really see any differences here between this and something you can pay a lot of money to upgrade to. So I think what I'm going to do is just leave this one on here. I don't expect to have any problems with it. If I do, I can upgrade, but I mean, it is what it is. You can see how well this thing is built. So even though it's listed as Class 2, I think it should be just fine. Another curiosity is that these BF Goodrich KO2 tires, their claim to fame for years and years is that their all-terrain tire is a very robust tire, 3-ply sidewalls and all that. Well, this particular version that Jeep is using, as you can see here, it's got a 116, 113Q load rating right there, 6-ply rating. That's what it says right there. If you look over here, the sidewall plies, it's only got 2. Camera won't focus. There we go, it's a little better. 2-ply sidewalls. Maximum PSI that you can inflate this tire to is 50. So basically what that means is this is a version of the KO2 that they're clearly building just for Jeep to use on these vehicles. It's a more lightweight version. It's not as rugged, thinner sidewalls, the whole 9 yards. You don't get the white letters on the side. All of the features that you normally would get in a BF Goodrich tire if you were to buy it in the aftermarket, you're not getting with this tire. And I just think that's kind of interesting. I think it's pretty obvious why they're doing that. It's for weight. They want to keep the weight down on the tire and keep the fuel economy up on the vehicle. And so that's why they're doing that. But I guess that explains all of the JL Wranglers that you see with these tires on them, and they're flat. All right, so I had a whole video shot here about this topic, and I went back and watched it myself, and honestly, I just didn't really like it. So I'm going to reshoot it real quick and just try to get to the points I want to make here. So the main topic of the video is which engine to go with. Why did I go with the one that I went with? So obviously the EcoDiesel's gone. Can't get that one anymore. It's not an option. The 392 Hemi is awesome, but it's extremely expensive. And the weird thing about it is when you option that engine in your Wrangler, you sacrifice the rest of the driveline. Very strange, but the 392 Hemi comes with that all-wheel drive transfer case. It's got the clutches in there. Complete nightmare. Remember the 2022 Ram 1500 Laramie that I had that had that style transfer case in it, and tried to use it in 4-low one day to pull somebody out of the mud, and within 20 seconds it was overheating. Absolute garbage. You don't have the 5,000 pound towing capacity with the 392 Hemi. There's just a lot of things you give up in the rest of the Jeep to get that engine. And like I said, it's just super expensive. So that gets checked off the list. So what you got left is the 2-liter turbo or the 3.6 tried and true Pentastar engine that's been around for 15 years now. And obviously, I went with a V6 Pentastar. And the reason why, it doesn't have anything to do with drivability, okay? Because I've driven the 2-liter turbo and it drives pretty good. It's got good snappy power. It makes pretty good torque for what it is. Fuel economy is not terrible on it. In fact, the one that I drove for a week seemed to be just a little bit better with gas mileage than the V6, even though if you look at the EPA ratings on the window stickers, they're pretty much identical. So it didn't have anything to do with drivability or how the 2-liter feels in the Jeep. For me, it was just all about the future. And what I mean by that is, if you look at like the track record that the 2.0 has, it's not very good. We've seen a lot of timing chain issues, oil separator leaks, coolant leaks that cause the engine to overheat before you realize there's a problem. Front timing cover leaks, which by the way, those kinds of things are very time consuming and expensive to work on that engine. Have a buddy out here that runs a shop, and he told me they were doing a timing chain job on a 2-liter in a Wrangler. And I can't remember exactly how many hours he said they had in that job, but it was crazy. So, I mean, it's just, that engine just never has really had a solid track record. The turbocharger's not that big of a deal. A lot of engines have turbos on them these days, but the fact is it does present a potential failure point. You got oil lines and stuff going in that thing, and eventually they do fail. Biggest thing is the 2-liter has direct injection, and I just can't stand direct injection. It serves no purpose in the real world, and I'll debate anybody on that. You know, the automakers will all tell you that they do direct injection on their engines for power and fuel economy. Well, that's bull crap, you know, because you can get engines that don't have it that, you know, compete in that segment, and they make the same power and get the same fuel economy. Now, this engine's a good example of that right here. You look at like the tailpipes on a car or a Jeep that's got a 2-liter or any direct injection engine for that matter, and you'll see that the tailpipe's black, you know, all that soot. You can imagine what the valves look like in the engine and all that. So anyway, long story short, it's just, yeah, it drives good. The 2-liter drives good, but in terms of longevity, and you know, and I know I'm not a guy that keeps stuff forever. You know me, I get a new vehicle all the time, seems like, but I keep thinking one of these days I'm going to find the one, you know, I'm going to find the vehicle one of these days that I just fall in love with, and I don't want to get rid of it. So you never do know. And if I decide to keep this Jeep, I want something that's going to be dependable long term. Now, some people will tell you the Pentastar has its fair share of problems. I personally haven't ever seen that. So it's just my personal experience. This engine is fantastic. I've had 5 or 6 of these things in 5 or 6 different vehicles. Every one of them has been flawless, and I mean 0 issues. And the last one that I had was in that 2020 Grand Cherokee, had 202,000 miles on it, ran like a sewing machine. My buddy's got this engine in his Ram pickup truck right now. I think he's got 240,000 miles on it. Police cruisers around here beat on this engine, and Durangos and Chargers all day, every day. I've just personally had great luck with these engines. People that I know have had great luck with them. I think they're fantastic engines. Are they perfect? No, no engine is. But when you compare this to the 2-liter turbo, this just has a better track record. And it's just a more simple design too. No direct injection on this, no turbocharging, none of that stuff. This is just a tried and true, simple, naturally aspirated V6 engine. And that's the kind of thing that I like. So that's why I went with it. Doesn't have anything to do necessarily with drivability, because I've driven both. I'm just thinking, down the road, if I decide to keep this Jeep, I know that I can count on this engine. Now, here's something else that's interesting. So the 2026 model year vehicles are out. Next year, for 2027, we bump up to that next tier when it comes to like emissions requirements. And so some of these automakers are already getting ahead of the game a little bit, and we're starting to see the new emissions equipment popping up on engines. I'll give you a good example. The 2026 Ford F-150 with the 3.5 EcoBoost, it's got a gasoline particulate filter on that thing now. And that GPF sucked like almost 20 horsepower out of that engine because of how restrictive it is in the exhaust. But that's the kind of thing that we're going to start seeing a lot more of very soon. It would not surprise me. I mean, I don't have any confirmation that they're going to do this, but it would not surprise me if for the 2027 model year, you see these Jeep Wranglers come out with gasoline particulate filters and maybe some other stuff added to them to try and meet those new requirements. So what I'm getting to is vehicles are continually getting more and more sophisticated, complicated, over-engineered to appease the government. It's not going to get any better. In fact, starting in 2027, it's only going to get worse. So there was a part of me that kind of wanted to get a good powertrain that I'm familiar with in a vehicle like this that I love while I could still get it. I mean, again, this is as simple of a V6 engine as you can buy in today's world. Mated to a 8-speed transmission that's one of the best transmissions in the world, hooked up to that rock track transfer case, which is rock solid, no problems, don't have to worry about clutches in there burning up or overheating. Going out to that big M220 full floating rear axle back there. I mean, this powertrain right here is as old-fashioned, old school as you can get in a new vehicle. And starting in 2027, we're going to see that begin to erode away as these new emissions requirements come in. And I'm betting that the next generation Wrangler, which is coming in 2028, I'm betting that probably not even going to be able to get this engine anymore when that new one comes out. I would say this Pentastar engine here, I'd say its days are just about numbered. We're probably going to see the next generation of the 4-cylinder Hurricane in those new Wranglers. And they may even have some electrification in the transmission. That's the next big thing that's coming along. And so the powertrains on these vehicles are just going to get more and more complex as time goes on. The gasoline particulate filters, that's one of those things that I just can't stand to see. We all know how that ruined diesel engines. Well, now they're getting ready to do the same thing to gasoline engines, and it's just a real shame. So anyway, all of that to say, that's part of the reason why I decided to get this Wrangler, is because I see the writing on the wall, and vehicles like this are not going to be available on the new market for very much longer. So I wanted to get my hands on another Pentastar, because like I said, I know this engine and I know it's what it's capable of, how many miles it can go without any issues, how simple it is. I'm just familiar with this, and that's what I wanted to go with. So that's pretty much what it boils down to. Now, one thing I will say, the transmission in this one seems to shift a little rough, and I've never experienced that before on these 8 speeds. I've had a lot of these 8 speeds, in lots of different vehicles, Ram trucks, Jeeps, so on and so forth. I've never experienced that. All the other 8-speeds that I've had were smooth as butter, just right out of the gate from day one, just really silky smooth. This one here's got a little bit of roughness in it, and it doesn't have many miles on it yet. I haven't really driven it much yet, so we'll give it some time, let the adaptives learn a little more. Maybe it'll smooth out some, but hopefully that doesn't become an issue. We could do a whole video on transmissions. Seems like none of the companies can make good transmissions right now. Even the new Toyota Tacoma is just littered with transmission problems and complaints all over the internet right now. And we saw the big fiasco with GM and Allison fighting with each other, and it's like none of these companies can make good transmissions. They're trying to use cheap parts inside to save money, I think. Another product of the COVID shutdowns. But anyway, hopefully that hasn't happened to this ZF 8-speed, because this has always been one of the best transmissions you can possibly get, but we'll see. But overall, man, this powertrain is amazing, and it might not be the high-tech stuff, but that's what I want. I don't want the high-tech stuff. So, all right, one more peculiarity here. Look at the driver's side. Okay, this is right behind the front tire on the driver's side, and I want you to look at the frame down here. Here's the Rubicon rock rail, of course. Okay, see what that looks like? Now let's do the same view over on the passenger side. All right, here we are on the passenger side, and look what's different here. You've got this massive bracket here. Now, a lot of people have debated what that's actually there for, and some have said that it's a type of crash bar for safety. If that's the case, why don't we have the same thing on the driver's side? So I don't really know exactly what that thing is, but I do know that it hangs down pretty low, and I can see that thing getting hung up on a tree root or a stump, rock, something. If you're off-road on a trail, I can see that thing taking a beating. So that's kind of strange. Might have to do a little research on that and see what its actual purpose is. Like I was saying, this is a late 2025 model, but if you look at the 2026s that came down the assembly line just a few weeks after this one, what you'll see is the only difference for 2026 is the hinges. So you can see this one still has the T50 screw in the bottom of the hinge. On the 2026s, they've redesigned this so that you don't have that screw there to capture that threaded section that goes down into the hinge. And so obviously why they did that is so that you can have a toolless design and you can remove the doors without having to use any tools whatsoever. You can take the doors off on a 2026 totally by hand. Now, you still have to fool with the wiring harness in here, which is a real pain, because in order to do that, you still have to take the kick panel off. The more you take that kick panel off, put it back on, take it off, put it back on, it's going to lead to fatigue, and eventually that panel is not going to stay on real great. Plus, the wiring harness is just a real pain in the rear end on these Jeep Wranglers. That's one thing that Ford did do better on the Bronco, because the wiring harness is out here on the A-pillar. When you open the door up, it's easy to see, easy to get to. But bottom line is you can take the doors off on a 2026 with no tools. Now, how much time does that actually save you? I thought about it and I decided it probably doesn't save you very much time at all, to be honest. You can use an electric ratchet, run these 3 screws out real quick, and bada bing, you got the doors off. So that's not that big of a deal in my opinion. That's the only difference for the 2026 model year is the door hinges. Everything else, as far as I can tell, is exactly the same, other than a couple of new paint colors. So no reason not to get a 2025 and save all the money right now, in my opinion, while there's still a few 2025s left on the lot. But oh well, what do you guys think? All right, so those are my thoughts on why I went with this engine, and I'm pretty happy with that decision. Now, in summary, really in love with this Jeep. I'm excited about it. I think this is the best overall powertrain you can get in one of these Wranglers. This engine, made it to the 8-speed auto, a good transfer case. It's not going to leave you stranded without 4-wheel drive. You got the heavy-duty full floating rear axle back there with the 4:10 ratios in them. I mean, overall, this is the best combo that you can get in a Wrangler, in my opinion. I'm going to wrap it up here. That's all I've got. I love the powertrain on this thing, though. Overall, what you get here is something that we're not going to see for much longer, because this engine's going to be going away in the next couple of years, I have a feeling. And you're never going to be able to get a non-direct injection, non-turbocharged, reliable engine like this probably ever again. So these things might end up being holy grail Jeeps in another 15 years. You never know. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.